Hello, everyone. This is Yusuf from Linbit, and I have Brian with me today for the LINCAST of the March. We have a fantastic news for you. We have updates for you. We have some really interesting technology to show you that is developed in drbd in Linbit. Let's start, shall we? How are you, Brian? Is everything good in USA?
Yeah, we're doing really well. We've had a lot of good advancements in the technology coming along, and business is trucking along as usual.
Good, good. I heard you have like big deals on the test. So let's hope all of them end up good.
Yeah, all the recent developments in Linstore and drbd and the Win drbd, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. That's all helping drive new business. So it's been beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. All right, let's start with the news. What happened since the February 1, and we will go step by step. First, I will jump into the Linstore. Then we will explain what's happened in WinDRBD, which we are developing for some years, and now it has the release candidate of 10, which is really close to be a stable one. And then we have some news in drbd world. We have new releases. We have new major branch actually, and which is drbd 9.1. And we have some social updates, not big ones, but upcoming are not small. So, all right, let's start. So in the last month, we don't have any new Linstore release, but the only improvement in the Linstore, the new release on the Linstore was the new Proxmox plugin, thanks to our developers. So they created this new plugin for the Proxmox environment, and it doesn't have any big new features, but it's now supporting the Linstore controller HA, which is now possible to use in Proxmox. And yeah, that's what we have in Linstore site in release cycle. But we have too many news upcoming for the Linstore. Shall we talk about that? What do you think? Should we give this news to our listeners, or we shouldn't? Just what do you think?
Love it. Caring is sharing. Let's share it all.
Okay, because when you share, you're obligated with that. You have to do it, right?
Yeah. Nothing like a little bit of liability. Make sure we do it.
Okay, all right. So I know our developers are developing a shared storage pool support for Linstore. And I know it's going to be stable one soon. And do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, so what the shared storage pool will essentially allow Linstore to create clustered logical volumes as resources, and then share them across multiple nodes.
Yeah.
So that's been a feature that, clustered LVM has been something that we've had requested several times. And finally, we've come to the point where we're going to develop it now.
Yeah, it's a useful feature for some scenarios, I know. And let's see how it's going to turns out. I see a demo today. It was really good. And yeah, I hope it will come live soon. So we have another feature that is upcoming. It's in work in progress, and we will have S3 backups in the closed feature. For instance, you can have your backups, like resource backups, into S3 targets with Linstore. And it's now actually working backup and restore as of today, but we are still doing some stress tests around it. and with different kind of S3 vendors like AWS, like custom ones like Min.io and so on. And I know so many prospects are asking for this, right, in the USA market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having the ability to do snapshot shipping offsite, that enables companies to be in compliance with their, their disaster recovery plans, and also just give them some reassurance that if something does happen locally, they've got somewhere else that they can turn to restore that data if need be.
Yeah, and it's like two birds with one stone. You're just you can use it for backups and also for like long distance replications for disaster recovery. It's like enabling both features in one go. It's really good. And
yeah, it's been much requested, so I'm glad that it's finally coming to fruition. I know it's been on our roadmap for a little while, and we ran into some hiccups here and there, given the current events and things like that, but we're getting through it, and I believe within the next month or two we should have something out, either for testing or even final by then to the public.
Yeah, let's hope. And we have a one more news in the Linstore site, and that's it. So the OpenStack driver and the code was in refresh in our site, and we are actually rewriting the whole OpenStack guide, I guess, right? That's what I hear.
Yeah, there was a lot of documentation updates that we saw this morning, and it's back from the dead. The OpenStack code has
I know that. Yeah,
has needed a refresh for a very long time, and I'm glad we're finally giving it some attention. So now our Cinder driver will work better with Linstore as it stands today. Should be a little bit more seamless when integrating it.
Yeah, and I think when it's completed, we will publish to the GitHub soon, so people can benefit from it. And I think these are all from the Linstore site for now, for this week. And let's jump into a fancy project of our company, WinDRBD. And do you want to do the introduction about WinDRBD?
Yeah, WinDRBD, if you look for Windows DRBD, you'll find an old April Fool's joke that we posted, I think back in 2009 or 2010.
That's really funny part of it.
Yeah, and as they say, the saying goes, like every joke has a little bit of truth in it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that became true for us. So we're in a circumstance now where we actually have Windows DRBD, and where this is beneficial is we've got clients that are, cloud providers that are utilizing DRBD in their infrastructure. And of course, there are customers of theirs that have requirements for Windows, or that's the platform they choose to use. And now with WinDRBD, they can keep one tool, a unified tool across their platform, so they don't have to learn two things.
Definitely.
For replication, they always turn to DRBD, and that's the configuration is the same on Windows as it is on Linux. And it's one tool that spans multiple platforms now. It's not just on Linux.
I don't recall the name of it, but I think Windows also has a similar technology in its kernel. But when you compare WinDRBD with that, WinDRBD was like more performant than that technology, right?
Yeah, and some of the tests that we've done with external sources have shown us that the performance actually increases even over the local disk speed when, in these virtual environments.
Yeah.
Once you add in DRBD, performance increases a noticeable amount. And I'm not a developer, so I can't explain the magic behind that one. But we do have test results that show that, Windows DRBD is faster than just a regular disk in Windows as a standalone disk.
I remember the project name. I just Googled it. It's DFS. And I even tried once, I think. Yeah. So I wanted to show our audience that watching from YouTube, if you're listening this from Spotify or another podcast platform, please just check it, our website, so you can see the diagram and graphics. But if you're watching from YouTube, thank you for that. And I will show you the WinDRBD diagram right now. So let me share my screen, this one. I'm hoping you can see it. So this is what it basically looks like. So what we did here, actually, so drbd is the old drbd. There's really like no big changes on drbd code, just a little bit adjustment for the Windows, but the whole code doesn't change. And what we did here is we created a Linux kernel compatibility layer here in Windows. So it has like couple of parts in it. So the low-level block device, the physical device, is attaching to the WinDRBD backing device, and it's also attaching to the DRBD. And we have a WinDRBD configuration interface that you can manage with drbd ADM, the old good drbd ADM tool that you're using anyways. And we have the WinDRBD networking section for the connection of the other DRBD nodes in the cluster. For instance, this might be a Linux machine, and this might be another Windows machine. So in one part, in one single solution, you can have your data replicated between two Windows machines, and also you can add a third Linux machine here, which doesn't have any Windows in it. So it's basically like you can have the high availability, you can have the disaster recovery, or you can create some storage, replicated storage within these platforms. And I think this is really becoming really interesting technology of 2021. And it's also leveraged the LVMs, ZFS into the Windows world, which is not present as of today. So it's really.
And that's interesting that you bring that up. You can mirror. So if for example, if you just have a standalone Windows system and you don't need it mirrored to another Windows system, in the lab we've set up and tested mirroring a Windows device to a Linux device.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you lose the high availability aspect of that because at that point you don't have a replicated Windows system, but your data is replicated at that point too.
Yes. Yes. So it's good. It's becoming the reality as of today. We have the RC10. We are calling the community to test it out. We are also testing in many environments. So if you have tested out, or if you want to test it, please reach us, and we are here to give you a test run. And Brian, what about the pricing on WinDRBD as a support model? So what do you think?
The pricing
will be the same.
Yeah, it'll fall in line with our list pricing for Linbit HA in general. The same pricing, same model, so that you won't have to learn a new pricing scheme or anything like that. It's just
cool.
Same pricing.
Cool.
Across the board, so that's good.
You know what our developers suggested today? They suggested I should support WinDRBD in Linbit because I'm using Windows in my machine. Because except me, everyone else is using like Linux distros and so on.
I need to get you a Linux system.
Yeah, I should be the one.
But there's also times, when Windows just works. That, like, for example, when you're podcasting and things like that, like,
yeah.
I think if you use OBS, the Open Broadcasting System, like
it's
that
really
just
good,
works in Windows.
Yes.
And there's, so that Windows has its place. I mean, every operating system has a place.
Yeah. All right. Enough with WinDRBD, and I'm hoping we will give in the next podcast. I'm hoping that we can give that we have a stable version right now, but let's see. All right, so let's talk about drbd and what happened in the drbd world. And I will start with the drbd's new version, which is drbd 9.0.28. And it's, I think, released like a couple of days ago. No, like, yeah, 10 days ago. No, not 10, it's 8 days ago. And there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 10 fixes in the code. So it's like some avoiding the false split brain detections, like a one kernel bug fixed, and one resync stack fixed, and so on and so on. It's like a really rare occurrence, but we are fixing it anyways because we don't want any bug in our code, right? And we have 2 new features in this one, and that's like resource renaming is now a thing in drbd. So you can easily rename your resource, and it's also applied into drbd utils, so you can also rename the drbds while it's running, I guess. Let me check the
Yeah, that's one of those features that you would think it seems logical just to have that, but here we are 21 years later, and it just now is being developed. But I'm glad it's there. Because sometimes when you're starting out with drbd, you name a resource something, and then later on you realize, like, well, that name doesn't really work. We've had people name resources primary and secondary, but it gets really confusing when your primary is in a secondary state and your secondary is in a primary state.
Yes.
So instead of having to rewind and redo all those over, now you can just rename it. Yeah. So that's beneficial there.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial in some cases. We have another one, and the Cmax rate is now can be set to 0 instead of some numbers. And it was default to, I think, 10 megabyte, I'm guessing. And now you can put a 0 in it, so you can disable the limit. And I totally understand why it has 10 megabyte limit back then, while the code is building up, because the network links was not fast like this. And we don't have NVMEs, we don't have SSDs back then. We don't know this will come in the future. So the limits was there to prevent some serious bottlenecks and so on. But right now we are slowly removing the limits in the drbd's code, which leads us to another drbd subject, which is a new drbd major release, drbd 9.1. What do you think about that, Brian? This is big news, drbd 9.1.
Yeah, so originally it was going to be, for a while there on our website, it was drbd 10 alpha. And then, we've had enough performance improvements through code optimization for multi-threaded CPUs and speed improvements on, CPU locking and things, that instead of waiting until we can get 10 to a position of stability and enough feature difference, we just decided, let's make it 9.1. And currently the 9.0 and the 9.1 branches, the code is similar with the exception of the speed improvements and code optimization. So there's really no reason why you wouldn't upgrade, unless, if things are working, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But
it's a drop-in replacement for the drbds.
So it's protocol compatible. So the replication protocol is the same in both. and there's really honestly no reason not to upgrade with the advancements in CPU technology and things like that. We were able to see improvements of up to threefold on certain tests.
Yeah.
I believe one of the tests that we were doing, we were capping out at about 160,000 IOPS. And then once we did the code optimizations and we found that bottleneck, we were able to get around 600. So, I mean, there's orders of magnitude improvement. So it's definitely something you want to check out if you have heavy workloads.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. And I already started to talk people to upgrade from 9.0 to 9.1 branch, because it is like a drop-in replacement. And I know that every new bug fix will be applied to drbd's 9.0 branch and 9.1, but the new features will be presented in 9.1. So if people want to get the new features from drbd, they will at some point need to upgrade to drbd's 9.1 branch.
Yeah, I think the 9.0
just renaming. So
yeah, I think the 9.0 branch is going to remain active until I think December of this year. And then at that point, we'll do the code freeze and critical bug fixes will get pushed back. But like you said, 0, we're not going to do any more feature enhancements on that branch. We're going to put everything on 9.1, and that's really the future.
Yeah.
Part of a lot of these optimizations, we just have never run into these problems because we've never had anybody with the proper equipment to test them. Most recently, we've been graced with somebody willing to test some things out that has access to some of the highest end systems we've ever seen. And they were able to give us access, more importantly, our developers, and they were able to shell in and, okay, I see where the problem is here. We're doing this spin lock here and we shouldn't be. So that's why we're able to do these, is we've had access to the system. So we're really grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. We gave this new big news to our audience. Now let's jump into the new guy of drbd stack, which is drbdd.
Yeah, that makes it confusing, but
yeah,
for now it is what it is.
I definitely agree on that.
Well, there's also the Etsy drbd.d directory.
Yeah.
So that maybe we can come up with a better name in the future, but for now it's drbdd.
Yeah, it's drbdd. It's a daemon, right, to handle the drbd's situations, drbd's resource situations, and just checks them, monitors them, and ships them into logs and acts if there is something that it can do. It's like a simple replacement for pacemaker and CoroSync stack. But what do you think?
Yeah, it allows you to do the functionality of CoroSync and pacemaker without the overhead. The configuration reminds me of the old Heartbeat configurations, the HA resources file. That's really old though. But the functionality is stable, and it actually relies on drbd's quorum feature to move things around. And the benefit of using it is, again, you don't have the overhead of pacemaker. It can be integrated into anything that runs drbd. I believe it was developed specifically for Minster clusters.
Yeah.
And the HA controller side of things. Yeah.
And to have a Minster HA controller, and back then we have to use the pacemaker stack for migrating the Minster database actually from one side to another, or between the nodes and so on, because Minster has a database obviously. But right now we can just use the drbdd, so we can move around the drbd device that is holding the Minster content. So it will be like, just like you said, less overhead for LINSTOR, for drbd. You don't have to use pacemaker for most of the cases. And yeah, pacemaker is a beast. So I just recently have my opinion on pacemaker after working like 1.5 years. Pacemaker is good. I am now starting to understand how it works, definitely. And but it's hard. It's hard to understand. So this will be much more easy for a lot of customers, because what I end up with most of the prospects is really simple solutions. They need like 2, 3 nodes, 5 nodes set up, or like very simple operations between the nodes. They don't need like really extensive knowledge of pacemaker. They don't want to know. And yeah, this will be like a game changer for in the future, I believe, both in drbd, I mean the HA part, and also the LINSTOR part, definitely.
Yeah, especially in the Kubernetes world. Matt, who's our content creator, he just, I think it was 2 weeks ago, might have been a week ago, released a video and a blog on the LINSTOR HA controller. And where that assists you is when you have persistent storage in Kubernetes, if a pod fails, your typical failover time is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
With the LINSTOR HA controller, he got that down to approximately a minute. Yeah. And I believe he did so by using this drbd to make the controller HA, and then notice an event happened and then trigger the failover quicker. And it's interesting to watch. So if you check that video out, it's on our YouTube channel, and then also the blog post is on our website.
Maybe let's advise our video content generators. Please add that link into the description, guys, so people can see it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Enough with the drbd today. The last part of this episode is like social updates. We have like upcoming webinars with some companies, like big brands. I'm not going to tell the names right now. Please follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, or LinkedIn, whatever you are using. And a good webinars are coming. Even I will be on one of them to present LINSTOR and the solution itself. So check those webinars out. They're there. And we had a webinar, like I think in January, with OpenNebula, and the videos are there, and people can just now watch it from our YouTube or check the OpenNebula page, because they also shared it and so on. We have another social update, which is our soft FOSDEM joint effort. And one of our LINSTOR developers, Robert, attended to that. And let me explain what is FOSDEM is. FOSDEM is a free event for the software developers in Europe. It's like free open source developers Europe meeting. I think that was the explanation of FOSDEM. I don't know. And every year, like thousands of developers and free open source community are gathering. But in 2021, obviously, it has to be online because of this COVID. Do you realize we only said COVID once in this in this podcast? So I think it's decreasing, right?
Yeah, it's like Voldemort, you should not speak that name, or whatever they say in the Harry Potter series, right? You don't talk about it, it doesn't exist.
Let's not just call it. And it will be gone. I heard Texas remove all the like quarantine situation in the state.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what
I mean, I like the idea that people are free to choose what they want to do. So if they want to wear masks, I think that's their choice. I think the most important thing we can do is make sure that we educate people on the science that we do know,
Yeah,
and then let people make their minds up from there.
definitely. Definitely agree with that. So I know there will be a Open Ebola Days in April. So do you want to
Yeah.
tell?
Yeah, I think our marketing team is working with Open Nebula. I believe it's slated for the middle of April. So for those in the US, right around tax day. But I think given the circumstances, I think they're working on extensions or something like that. I don't know the gist of it yet, but so yeah, around April 15th, or it might be around the 20th, somewhere in there. We're having Open Nebula Days. There'll be a series of webinars, and very similar to the LINSTOR days that we did last year, where we'll be doing joint webinars. We'll have a couple individual webinars that we're doing on our own. I think it might be posted on the website, and if it's not, it should be up pretty soon. Let me see if let me get on our website and see if it's up there just yet. It may or may not be.
I don't think it's live right now, but I think it will be soon.
Yeah, I don't. I've seen the staging site, and the graphics look pretty cool. So there's that. Whatever that's worth.
You see that logo, like Open Ebola logo and the LINSTOR logo, like together. It's cool, right? I really like that.
Yeah. Too. I'm trying to convince marketing to use more of that type of blue in our product briefs and things like that, but it's an uphill battle.
My fingers crossed for that.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay, so cool. All right, I think that's all for this episode. Thanks everyone for listening, and please keep following us from the social media. Please follow the Twitter, LinkedIn, or do we have any Facebook account? So we are now actively releasing new blog articles. We had like 2 in last month, and we will have like 2 or 3 this month, and they're great. They're like focusing on mostly the good use cases that you might have interest. So please check those out, and they're important. And we are obviously doing a lot of joint effort with the community, with the other companies like Open Nebula and so on and so on. And please attend our webinars. They're all free, and I think you will enjoy it at the end.
Yeah, we try and keep the webinars informational and not so salesy. I don't.
Yes,
it's very rare that we have just a sales webinar. At least on our side, I always push for the use case, and would I want to watch this webinar? And I'm pretty grumpy, so also, if I don't want to watch it, then nobody else wants to watch it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I always enjoy our webinars. They're educational.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Brian, for joining me again.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Let's meet up in 1 month, shall we?
All right. Hopefully we'll talk before then, but if not, we'll see you in a month.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.